Let's get weird into it. Number 10. Rockabye Baby. Picture this. You're a new parent. You're sleep-deprived, covered in some kind of unidentifiable spit-up, and your brain is basically a smoothie made of anxiety and caffeine. You need to get your little screaming bundle of joy to sleep. So you cradle them, you sway gently, and you sing a sweet, soothing lullaby about placing them in a treetop, where a strong gust of wind will inevitably send them plummeting to their doom. Wait, what? Yeah. Rockabye Baby is, when you actually listen to the words, a song about horrific parental negligence. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Who wrote this? A squirrel with a grudge? It's less of a lullaby and more of a threat. But of course, it's not actually about yeeting an infant from a tree. The most popular theory is that this song is a piece of 17th century political smack talk. The baby in question is supposedly the son of King James II of England, a wildly unpopular Catholic king in a very Protestant country. His wife had a string of miscarriages and stillbirths, so when she finally produced a healthy male heir, rumors started flying that the real baby had died and been swapped out with a commoner's child just to secure a Catholic successor. So, the rhyme is a bit of revolutionary wishful thinking. The wind is the Protestant force, the glorious revolution, that was brewing to overthrow him. The cradle is the royal house of Stuart. And the baby, well, he's the heir whose claim to the throne is about to come crashing down. So you're not singing about a tragic arboreal accident. You're singing about the collapse of a monarchy and the ousting of a king. It's a lullaby about a coup. Sweet dreams, you tiny revolutionary. Number 9. Bah, bah, black sheep. There are few things more universal than the soul-crushing moment you look at your paycheck and see how much of your hard-earned money vanished into the gaping maw of taxes. You work hard, you do your job, and then some guy in a suit who you've never met gets to take a huge slice of your pie for reasons. Roads, I guess. Well, this feeling is not new. It's an ancient, primal rage, and it's been immortalized in a song we teach to toddlers. Bah, bah, black sheep isn't just a friendly chat with some local livestock. It's a lament about crippling medieval taxes. Let's travel back to the 13th century, under King Edward I. He was fighting a lot of wars, and wars are expensive. His solution? Tax the ever-loving daylights out of the wool trade, which was England's biggest industry. So, when the farmer asks the sheep if he has any wool, the sheep's reply of, yes, sir, 3 bags full, is less about abundance and more about accounting. Here's the breakdown. 1 for the master was the massive cut that went to the king, the feudal lord, the royalty, the guys who owned the land and everything on it, including you. 1 for the dame was the tithe that went to the church, which was another mandatory, non-negotiable expense. And that last bag, 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. That's what the shepherd, the poor guy who actually did all the work of raising, shearing, and caring for the sheep, got to keep. He gets a third, if he's lucky. The whole rhyme is a bleak, pastoral complaint about being powerless in a system designed to funnel wealth upwards. It's the 13th century equivalent of singing about inflation and income tax. Now go to sleep, Timmy, and dream about feudal economics. Number 8. Pop Goes the Weasel. Imagine a foggy, grimy street in Victorian London. The air is thick with coal smoke and the smell of gin and despair. This isn't a jaunty, carefree place. This is a place where survival is a full-time job with no benefits and terrible hours. And it's the setting for one of the most bizarrely cheerful-sounding nursery rhymes ever. Pop Goes the Weasel sounds like a nonsense rhyme about an exploding mammal, which, to be fair, would be pretty great. But the truth is far more bleak and iqtisadi. It's all about the brutal cycle of poverty. The lyrics are a map of a poor person's desperate weekend. Up and down the city road, in and out the Eagle. The Eagle was a famous pub in London. So far so good. Having a pint. But what about the weasel? It's Cockney rhyming slang. Weasel and stoat means coat. Your coat was often the most valuable thing a poor worker owned. So when you were out of money for food or another drink, you'd have to pop your weasel, pawn your coat, to get a few shillings to make it through the week. The song is literally about pawning your only warm piece of clothing, just to afford the simple pleasure of a beer or a meal. The other verses mention the monkey on the stick, which was a weaver's tool, being chased out by the landlord for rent. It's a song about being one missed paycheck away from total ruin, set to a tune so catchy you could play it at a child's birthday party. It's a grim tale of financial desperation hidden inside a bouncy, happy melody. Basically, it's the theme song for capitalism's final boss. Number 7. Humpty Dumpty. All right, let's clear something up right now. Forget everything you think you know. Humpty Dumpty was not an egg. I repeat, not an egg. Nowhere in the rhyme does it say he's an egg. We've all just been collectively gaslit by illustrators for centuries into believing this story is about a clumsy, anthropomorphic breakfast food. The real Humpty Dumpty was much bigger, much heavier, and way more destructive. Humpty Dumpty was a cannon. During the English Civil War in the 1640s, the city of Colchester was held by the Royalists, the guys loyal to the king. They had a massive cannon nicknamed Humpty Dumpty, mounted on top of the St. Mary at the Wall church to defend the city. It was a beast. For weeks, it rained down hell on the attacking parliamentarian forces. It was the Royalists' big, beautiful, wall-sitting boy. But the parliamentarians, being a resourceful bunch, aimed their own cannons not at Humpty Dumpty, but at the wall underneath it. Eventually, a lucky shot shattered the church wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. The cannon tumbled to the ground, likely getting stuck in the marshy terrain below. And despite their best efforts, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. You can't just glue a 2-ton cannon back together and hoist it back onto a crumbling wall. The fall of their best defensive weapon led to the fall of the city. So, the great existential tragedy of a fragile Eggman is actually just a historical account of a very expensive, very broken piece of military hardware. Less poetic, sure, but a way better story. Number 6. Goosey Gander. There's a special kind of anxiety that comes from feeling unsafe in your own home. The feeling of being watched, of knowing that someone could burst in at any moment. Now, imagine that feeling, but instead of worrying about a burglar, you're worried about the actual government kicking down your door because you pray to the wrong version of God. Welcome to the world of Goosey Gander. This rhyme is a chilling little story about religious persecution during the Protestant Reformation in 16th century England. After King Henry VIII broke from the Catholic Church, being a Catholic priest became a very, very dangerous job. They were hunted as traitors to the crown. Wealthy Catholic families built secret hiding places into their mansions called priest holes. Tiny, hidden rooms where priests could hide during raids. The rhyme describes the search. Goosey Gander, whither shall I wander? Upstairs and downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. This is the sound of the priest hunters, the government agents, stomping through the house, searching every nook and cranny for their target. And the final lines are the darkest part. There I met an old man who wouldn't say his prayers. This is the priest they found in hiding. Refusing to say the Protestant prayers was an admission of his Catholicism. So what happened to him? I took him by the left leg and threw him down the stairs. This is a sanitized version of what really happened. Capture almost certainly meant imprisonment, torture, and a brutal public execution. It's a nursery rhyme about a state-sponsored manhunt ending in murder. The perfect little tune to hum while tidying up the playroom. Number 5. Jack and Jill. Going up a hill to fetch a pail of water seems like a pretty low-stakes activity. A simple, wholesome chore. The absolute worst-case scenario should be, what, you trip and get your socks wet? Annoying, but not a national tragedy. Unless, of course, your name is King Louis XIV and your companion is Marie Antoinette. One of the most enduring theories about Jack and Jill is that it's a dark, satirical allegory for the French Revolution. It's not about two clumsy children. It's about the spectacular downfall of the French monarchy. Think about it. Jack and Jill went up the hill. That's their ascent to the throne of France. Their mission? To fetch a pail of water. This wasn't literal water. It was an attempt to fix the nation's crumbling finances and social structure, a task they were spectacularly bad at. Then comes the fall. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Louis XVI didn't just trip. He was deposed and, in 1793, famously lost his head to the guillotine. He literally broke his crown by losing his kingdom and his life. And what about Jill? Well, Jill came tumbling after. 9 months later, Marie Antoinette met the exact same fate. The whole rhyme is a morbid, condensed history lesson about one of the most violent and chaotic periods in European history. It's a story of regime change, beheadings, and the complete collapse of a political system, all cleverly disguised as a story about a minor hiking accident. It's basically historical gossip set to a simple melody. Number 4. London Bridge is falling down. Your average 4-year-old playing London Bridge is falling down. Probably isn't contemplating the finer points of medieval structural engineering or ancient pagan rituals, but maybe they should be. Because this game isn't just about a bridge having a bad day. It's likely about the terrifying lengths people might have gone to in order to keep it standing. The historical London Bridge was a bit of a disaster. For centuries, it was constantly being damaged by fires, ice, and general wear and tear, and it needed endless, expensive repairs. So the first layer of the rhyme is just a statement of fact. The bridge was, on a fairly regular basis, falling down. But there's a much creepier theory lurking in the foundations. It taps into an ancient, widespread belief called immurement. This was the practice of entombing a living person, often a child, within the foundations of a structure to serve as a supernatural guardian. The idea was that the victim's ghost would protect the building from collapse or attack. It's a horrifying concept, but there's archaeological evidence of it from all over the world. So when the song asks, "Who will we get to build it up?" and cycles through materials like wood, clay, brick, and stone, it's about the struggle to find a permanent solution. And the final verse in some versions, "Set a man to watch all night," could be a coded reference to a human watchman, or it could be a much more sinister nod to the watcher, who was to be sealed inside forever. The fair lady being locked up in the game? She might just be the chosen sacrifice. So, when you and your friends make an arch with your arms, you're not just a bridge. You're a walking, talking tomb. Have fun. Number 3. Three Blind Mice. Okay, who doesn't love a good cartoon villain? A bumbling, over-the-top baddie who sets elaborate, easily foiled traps. That's kind of what the farmer's wife in Three Blind Mice sounds like. A comically enraged woman chasing rodents with kitchenware. The reality, however, is significantly less comical and involves way more fire. Like several other rhymes on this list, this one is a thinly veiled jab at Queen Mary the Fursome, also known as Bloody Mary. She earned that nickname for her enthusiastic and brutal persecution of Protestants, after she re-established Catholicism as England's state religion. The farmer's wife is Mary herself. The Three Blind Mice? They weren't actual mice. They were 3 prominent Protestant bishops: Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Ridley, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer. They weren't physically blind, of course. They were blind to the truth of the Catholic faith, at least in the Queen's eyes. They actively opposed her, so she went after them. And she didn't just cut off their tails with a carving knife. That's a massive understatement. Mary had them tried for heresy, convicted, and then publicly burned at the stake. The rhyme is a piece of protest propaganda, a secret way for people to mock and condemn the Queen's violent cruelty without getting themselves arrested and, also burned at the stake. It's a political cartoon in song form, turning a terrifying monarch into a kitchen tyrant and her victims into helpless cartoon animals. It's a classic case of using nursery rhymes to say what you couldn't say out loud, that the person in charge was a monster. Number 2. Mary, Mary. Quite contrary. If you've ever had a neighbor who takes their gardening way too seriously, you know the type. Perfect rows, not a weed in sight, a judgmental stare if your lawn gets a little long. Now, imagine that neighbor was the Queen of England, and instead of planting petunias, she was planting political enemies in the ground. That's the story behind Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. Surprise, surprise, it's another hit single about Queen Bloody Mary I. She was a popular subject for this kind of thing. The rhyme is a masterpiece of sarcastic, coded language, posing as an innocent question about her gardening habits. How does your garden grow? Is the central taunt. It's not asking about her flowers. It's asking how her kingdom is faring, or more pointedly, how the graveyards are filling up under her reign. Heresy was the weed she was determined to pull out, and she was very, very thorough. The answers are even more grim. With silver bells and cockle shells, these weren't charming garden decorations. They are believed to be slang terms for instruments of torture. Silver bells were likely thumbscrews, and cockle shells were, well, let's just say they were another unpleasant device attached to a more sensitive area. And the final line? And pretty maids all in a row? That's the most chilling part. It's not a line of lovely flowers. It's either a reference to the rows of fresh graves for executed Protestants, or, even more gruesome, a nickname for the guillotine, which was nicknamed the Maiden at the time. The rhyme is a brutal diss track, painting the queen as a psychotic gardener who cultivates death and pain. It's amazing we turned it into a song about being a bit grumpy in the garden. Number 1. Ring-a-Ring-a-Roses. This is it. The big one. The undisputed champion of secretly horrifying nursery rhymes. It's a song that has been sung by millions of children dancing in a circle, blissfully unaware that they are reenacting the horrifying symptoms of the Black Death. Ring-a-Ring-a-Roses is a step-by-step guide to dying from the bubonic plague, which wiped out a massive chunk of Europe's population in the 14th century and recurred for centuries after. Let's break down this cheerful little dance of death. Ring-a-Ring-a-Roses doesn't refer to a flower. It refers to the first symptom, a round red rash that formed on the skin, often with a dark center, called a bubo. These were swollen lymph nodes that were the telltale sign you were completely screwed. A pocket full of posies. This wasn't for decoration. People in the Middle Ages believed that disease was spread by bad smells, a concept called miasma. To protect themselves, they would carry pockets full of fragrant flowers and herbs like posies to hold up to their noses, hoping the sweet smell would ward off the deadly plague vapors. Spoiler alert, it did not work. At all. Adishu, adishu, or in some versions, ashes, ashes. The sneezing was a later symptom as the disease attacked the respiratory system. The ashes version could refer to the immolation of victims' bodies, as mass cremations were common when the death toll got too high for individual burials. And the final iconic line that every kid screams with delight, "We all fall down." This one doesn't need much explanation. They fell down because they were dead. The game isn't a game. It's a folk memory of a continental apocalypse, a musical reenactment of catching a fatal disease and dropping dead in the street. So the next time you see kids playing it, just know they're joyfully celebrating one of the worst pandemics in human history. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.